Hello, welcome into the Gridiron Show. No, that is not Will Gavin's voice you're hearing. I apologise about that. My name is Michael McQuaid. Delighted to be joined here by Mr. Simon Clancy, Mr. Olly Hunter. Lads, how's the form? How are we doing? Good?
Good, Will. How are you?
I was going to say, never apologise for it not being Will Gavin.
Yes.
Because he would not do the same thing for you.
No, celebrate.
And we all know that.
Exactly. Celebrate the fact that it is you and not Will.
I'm
Nice.
great. I'm great, Michael. I'm currently, or I was just before we started, chowing down on a really beautiful ham and gherkin cornichon and rocket sandwich. It's stunning. I got a really good, my favorite, if I go to a deli, there's a nice piece of ham that you can get with orange on the outside, but they had just a little bit of it left, which was far cheaper, bits on the bone. Oh, I'm sorry if you're a vegetarian. No, I'm not.
What's cornichon?
Cornichon's a little gherkin.
Who knew? That's the most middle class thing I've ever heard you say, Ollie.
Yeah.
Most middle class.
So, how can you top that, mate? You just can't top that, can you?
I can't, mate. I had some crunchy peanut butter inside a warm pitta. That's how much of a scab I am.
No, but that sounds just as appetizing, actually.
When you just can't be bothered, and you're really busy, and like, shit. What am I going to do to eat? And then it's just like, oh, it's 3:20. I'll slice a pitta and have some peanut butter.
I love it. I love it. Obviously, welcome into everyone watching live on Twitter. We're also on YouTube. Shout out to Paul who's given us a live comment. You can get your comments and questions, and we will try our very, very best to answer them during the show. Tweet us at Gridiron on Twitter. People already have with some interesting questions. No Miami questions yet, Si, but we'll see. Let's just jump off. Now, it's great that we've done this today, because if we had done the Gridiron Show in its pre-season or start of season slot, lads, at 4 o'clock on a Monday, UK time, Frank Reich would have been fired about 5 minutes after the show had ended, so it's good we get to do it today. Si, I'll start off with you, sir. Frank Reich obviously getting fired. A shambled performance on Sunday against New England. We'll talk about his successor in a minute, but he went 40-33 for one. Started off with Andrew Luck, had Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer, and near 49-year-old whatever Philip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and then the whole situation issue with quarterback. Do you think he done all right with what he had, or do you think the Colts have made the right choice? It's a stunning move in week 10 to have.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, isn't it? I didn't see the game on Saturday. I'm Matt Sherry, Patriots fan. Obviously, he watched the game, said it was one of the worst performances from an NFL team he's seen ever. Matt, obviously, no stranger to hyperbole, but nevertheless, it was certainly having read about it, it certainly felt that way. It's a difficult one. Frank Reich, hugely well respected coming in. I thought he did a good job to start with, but it strikes me that it's just yet another realization that unless you get that quarterback position right, that you're just never going to make it work. And they couldn't make it work, bouncing around 7 different passes. In the end, it just became a bit ridiculous with the Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger issue, bouncing from Rivers to Wentz to Ryan. And clearly they must have seen in preseason and in training camp that Ryan's arm was absolutely shot. And that onus falls on Chris Ballard, I'm afraid. That's your job as a general manager. And I think the writing was on the wall from early in the season. The injury to Jonathan Taylor doesn't help, but also the regression of the offensive line. What's happened to Quentin Nelson, for example? Nelson, one of the, on a Hall of Fame kind of arc in the first years of his career, gets the big contract, and on Sunday and through this season, he's just looked absolutely abject at times. So some real problems, I think, for, I can't even say his name, the new head coach coming in. But looking at Marcus Brady getting fired a couple of weeks ago, that's to pin the blame on Brady's shoulders. I thought was pretty not a good. It just wasn't a good look, and you sort of question the whole situation with Irsay, and how many fingers of his own does he have in the pie, and but I just think ultimately it comes down to their inability to hire a quarterback, because it's a good fan base in a good city with a great stadium. It's a good team. It's well run, certainly by the GM, generally well run. They've got a lot of things going for it, but they just couldn't get that guy. And I think Reich became the fool guy for it. I don't think he'll be out of work very long. I think he'll get a head coaching job somewhere else, and whether that's in college, but I suspect it'll be in the NFL. I think he'll be one of the earliest hires in the new cycle after after Black Monday at the end of the season, and we go from there. But it's no shock to see him fired, but it certainly won't be a shock to see him back in the NFL soon. And I think he will go on to be a successful head coach.
I think he's learned his lesson. He definitely won't be going anywhere where there is any sort of quarterback controversy or quarterback downturn. There's no way that he's going to allow his trajectory, his career trajectory, to be afflicted by having a crap quarterback or not having a quarterback that's good enough. So look at a team that's going to be picking high in the draft so that he can have one of those 3 stellar top 10, top 5 picks or players in the draft next year, or a team with an established quarterback that doesn't have a shoddy arm, isn't like Bambi under pressure, or isn't aging. So I think he'll have learned his lesson. I think you're right, Simon. I think he will get a job soon, but the onus on all of this and the shambles has to go back to the general manager, right? Like the continual hiring of or bringing in of QBs that, all right, with Philip Rivers, no, even with Philip Rivers, we knew his arm was gone. So that was an experiment that didn't work. Okay, to a point, they won some games, but that was never, for 1 year, never the long-term answer, and not the right kind of message that you want to be showing to A, your fan base, and B, your the rest of your players. And they've gone it and done it again with Matt Ryan. And it's no surprise to me that you get players who see this malaise going on around them, players dropping off form or not being able to return back from injury quicker than perhaps they should be. I'm not casting aspersions in that. It's just a thing. It's a well-known thing that if things are going well for your organization, you get back a little bit quicker, a week or two quicker, or you bust a gut to get back off of injury, and that isn't happening at Indianapolis. So you're right, Simon. It's a sad thing that the organization has come to this, but they're used to tanking and tanking well to get a generational quarterback in the next year, in the draft the next year. So, I mean, the Saturday appointment is ludicrous, but I get where they're coming from. We're going to tank, and we need a guy to carry that tanking all the way through.
It's funny because if you go back to not even 6 months ago, whenever Matt Ryan comes in, a lot of people going, this is the right move for Matt Ryan. He has a chance now in the end of his career to maybe try and go one more time. Family seemed happy, teams seemed happy, and then week 1 came and sweet Jesus, what happened? Chris Ballard was asked in July and in June about the offensive line, and he kept dodging questions, and it's came back to haunt him almost now. They've fired a head coach that in the last 4 seasons finished 10th, 19th, 13th, and 12th by offensive DVOA. They now bring in Jeff Saturday, which is look, we all collectively, lads, have as much college experience head coaching as Jeff Saturday has. So look, we're on the same page. Is this a tankathon? Is this a situation where Irsay has just given up? I mean, I watched the press conference this morning, and he's like, oh, he's fully capable. I mean, that's definitely a ringing indictment of a head coach of an NFL team, isn't it?
There are so many, there are so many places to go with this. And the tanking one is an obvious one, right? But they are hiring a coach who has never coached in the NFL, has never coached in college, never been a position coach anywhere. He was a high school coach. His last record was 3-7-1, okay? A high school in Georgia, right? And it's okay for guys like Andrew Whitworth to come out and say, look, head coaching is not just about X's and O's. It's about being a leader of men. And it's about being, getting hold of players and inspiring them and those sorts of things. And that's absolutely fine. Okay. I do not for a second think that there are social issues well beyond just tanking or Jeff being a nice guy and a mate of Jim Irsay's. I know he was a sounding board for Irsay through the season. But Brian Flores' lawyers must be rubbing their hands together with glee, because this just makes their case. I mean, this is the personification of everything that Brian Flores has been talking about in his case. I just think, and that press conference you talk about, Mike, Irsay tried to defend what was clearly a bizarre decision with even more bizarre logic. It's now a team completely in turmoil. It's an owner that's succumbing to his worst impulses, of ego and of impatience, chasing these kind of glory days that, going back to the era of Peyton and those sorts of things that clearly aren't there at the moment. And I just think in terms of just read the room, Jim. When it comes to the entire conversation surrounding a lack of opportunity for minority coaches, and even if you're not going to hire a minority coach, you've got Bubba Ventrone as your special teams coordinator, who is absolutely primed to be an NFL head coaching candidate at some point in the pretty near future, and may well be hired as a head coach in the next round of hiring. We talked about him in this month's Gridiron magazine as one of the guys who teams absolutely love in terms of his ability. If you're looking for a rabble-rousing guy who can fire the troops up, you already have him as your special teams coordinator. So I don't understand why you didn't have to bring in Peyton Manning's former center to be the cut. I mean, it was bizarre enough when Houston were talking about hiring what's his name, who's completely escaped me, the quarterback. Yeah. We all know who we were talking about. But
yes,
I mean, that was bizarre enough, right? But at least there was an interview process. At least there were a number of candidates, and the job ultimately obviously went to Lovie Smith. And I'm not saying that, that's a bad thing necessarily to think outside the box and have somebody who's coming in with a different view and a different. But these are, this is, and Jeff Saturday must know what's ahead of him. Who's he going to who's he hiring? Who are the coaches that are all of a sudden going to come in and do? Is he just retaining the same coaches? How, Ollie? I just don't know how it's going to work. I mean, I watch a lot of Mike McDaniel press conferences, and he's like Tuesdays, I get in the office at 4 a.m. and I'm there until 10 p.m. at night. I don't look at my phone for 10 hours because I just can't. And my wife might message me to say, oh, her daughter's fallen over, or she's got a cut knee, or what do you want for dinner? And he said, I get back to her 7 hours later because this is install day. Tuesday is literally the day where we get in the room, we create the magic for the Sunday that's about to come. Is Jeff Saturday? I mean, there are so many. I just find it so bizarre. And then Irsay's talking about, I hope that he gets the job full time. It's really? I mean, really? Is that what is this the play?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And you're a great live Googling, Michael. It's Josh McCown.
McCown, of course.
But I think the biggest thing is the social thing, Simon. I think you're absolutely bang on there because they have a really good opportunity to address that situation and the growing situation in the NFL. And they've willfully chosen to not do it. And when you think about that, if you're a black or a minority player playing for the Indianapolis Colts, or you're out of contract next year and you're looking around it and you've got two options, one's the Colts and one's somewhere else, and you're seeing that they're not pushing the right message or a good message, then it beggars belief that they haven't even entertained that, and they're bringing in someone who has no experience. And if you're a current player on that roster, regardless of your skin color, you're looking at this going, who is this guy? How can I know he's been a player, but how can I take what he's saying seriously as my head coach? Because he's never been there before. He's not even positioned coached. It's such a bizarre decision on a multitude of levels.
I'll just say what his seventh last tweet was. He's quite an active tweeter, Jeff Saturday. So his seventh most recent tweet, I was just looking, was this: Raiders look horrible. Who are the Colts playing on Sunday?
Raiders.
Raiders. I mean, come on. You can't make this stuff up.
Well,
maybe that's how he got the job.
Well, maybe.
Well, I was going to jump in and just say the quotes of what Jim Irsay said. I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience. I'm glad he hasn't learned the fear that's in this league, because it's tough for all our coaches. They're afraid. They go to analytics and it gets difficult. He doesn't have all that. Oh, God, he doesn't have the fear, and there was no other candidate. And then he quickly said, we were fortunate he was available, and he has tons of experience. He knows the game inside and out. I understand that he's fully capable of doing this.
He doesn't. he doesn't have the fear. He does know that he was a 15-year veteran offensive lineman in the NFL, and he understands what coaches and players go through in terms of. I mean, it just beggars belief. I mean, I can't get my head around it.
It's actually insane. Like, I think we'll actually be sitting down thinking to ourselves, where were we when that happened? And it's a real pity that Ollie, that they're not in Hard Knocks in season like the Cardinals are, because that would be the best crack ever.
God, wouldn't it?
Let's and folks, if you are watching live, feel free to comment. There's a heap of people watching this, so please do feel free to comment. Twitter, YouTube, we'll get us out at the end. Let's jump very quickly on a story each or a talking point each from the week that we've had there. I guess the one for me, lads, is there was a comment about Josh Allen saying that he's had more UCLs than Man City. That's a good one. But for me, it's all about the Jets. The defense is completely loaded. I mean, Sauce Gardner, lads, looks unreal at game sealing play as well, and they just look, lads, genuinely like a Jets team that can go far in the season. They could maybe honestly get 10 or 11 wins, but I get that Josh Allen came out afterwards and said he didn't play well. I guess the big question now is, and it's something to look at the next few weeks, how injured is Josh Allen? How fit is Josh Allen? Because we had all this talk at the start of the season about Matthew Stafford and his arm. You would hope as a neutral, that someone that loves the game, lads, that Josh Allen is okay down the stretch, because he's in for a busy few months.
As a fan of an AFC East team, as much as I do like Josh Allen, I would rather him be injured for the rest of the season and be out, although not seriously injured, but because I wouldn't wish that upon him. But I think, I don't know enough about UCLs and ulnars and those sorts of things, but anytime you get a ligament injury to your, in your throwing arm, in your elbow, that is not, to me, going to be something that gets better. The more you play a physical sport like football. So I don't think it's a great sign for the Bills. And the singular player that you couldn't lose, I don't think for any stretch of time, but you just, when we get to sort of mid-December and into January, you want Josh Allen firing at 100%. And if he's not, that's going to be a massive struggle. So I don't know, because like I said, I think everybody's sort of on tenterhooks waiting for this medical to come through in terms of exactly how bad the situation is. But I can understand why fans would be very nervous up in the north, I think. And as it pertains to the Jets, I certainly think you're right about their defense, and Sauce Gardner playing at an elite level, which I didn't think he would be capable of early on. I felt it was really grabby at Cincinnati. I thought he'd get penalized quite a lot, but he has been outstanding. I just, this team goes as far as Zach Wilson can take them. And, he is by some distance the worst quarterback in the NFL. So, I don't necessarily share your optimism, Mike, but I think defensively, certainly Robert Saleh's got that unit playing brilliantly.
When you look at Josh Allen's interceptions over the last weekend and some of his play previous weekends before that, he's failing to spot the underneath guy, or he's failing to spot the free guy coming back and making a play towards the ball. Now, some of it can be down to the issue with the throwing arm and not having maybe as much juice on that throwing arm. But there are some slight worrying aspects creeping into his play that we had the first 2 years of his NFL career. I'm not saying that he's on the way down. I'm not saying that at all. But it's something to keep an eye on, that some of the throws and decisions that he's making, they're not as elite as they were last year and at the beginning of this season. Saying that, you're right, that Jets defense is outrageous. And the NFL's an incredible thing, isn't it? As soon as you get on a roll, either way, like a losing roll or a winning roll, things start going your way. You play up, you play better, Jets are a quintessential team of playing up and playing up towards their opponent's reputation and level, and it's work, and things start going for you, and you start forcing errors, and that's exactly what's happened. It happened with the Giants a little bit at the beginning of the season, but the Jets have really taken on that mantle now. It is a worry. It is a worry for Bills fans that Allen's going through these injuries. I wonder if they're tempering expectations a little bit, and maybe he'll be back this week, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, a little bit of a worry. But Jets, whoa, love it.
I do think Bills fans don't have to worry though about the team overall, about losing to the
No,
Jets.
no,
I just put that down to really good teams often have clunkers on their way to a Super Bowl just because you just can't be focused for 20, 21 weeks of the season like that. It's impossible. Plus, they're a little bit banged up. They're a little bit, especially in the secondary. I know Trey White's coming back, but obviously the safeties have been a bit hurt. Matt Milano was hurt. There's some of the guys on that defensive line rotation are injured. I still think the running game's a work in progress, and I still think the running game, aside from Allen, might be the thing that trips them up in the playoffs in terms of, if you're getting into a dirty battle with Kansas City, or you're getting into a dirty battle with Tennessee on the road, and the Titans are able to ball control and run that to me would be a bit of a worry, because I think there's some inconsistency there with Singletary, Zach Moss, obviously sort of fallen almost behind James Cook a little bit now, so that would be a concern for me. But I don't, injuries aside, I wouldn't, if I was a Bills fan, I wouldn't be worried about that performance of the weekend. I just think it's one of those things that good teams often do. You look back at the Patriots for all those years of their dominance, the first 4 or 5 weeks of almost every season for New England was just an opportunity. It was just an extension of the preseason, really. And it wasn't until sort of, they obviously stayed competitive, but it wasn't really until, October, late October, November, that they really started to hit their straps. And by December, January, they were the team that, nobody could beat.
As a executive producer of the Gridiron Show, I'm going with this with my fingers like this here for people watching. I did tell you lads to maybe talk about something that you're interested in, or a team that's caught your interest over this weekend. Ollie, I'm just going to give you your topic, mate. I feel like we talk, or either if Will's on or if I'm on, this is brought up every week now, but we need to genuinely talk about this. Like, what in the hell's going on with Aaron Rodgers? Some of that play on Sunday was insane. Like, you must be very not concerned, but like, are you at the point now where another game and the season's over? Who pays? Does the OC pay? Like, what does Mark Murphy do here? Like, I mean, they've paid Aaron Rodgers. There was multiple times on Sunday where there was guys open and he wasn't flowing to them. What's going on in Green Bay? Please enlighten us.
I think he is massively in his head. If you noticed, he had a nice sharp haircut and a good shave beforehand. I think it's part of trying to do anything to arrest his personal and the team's slide. I am quite different, actually, compared to what I've seen on social media from some Packers fans about Aaron Rodgers this week. This week, I felt that he was trying to. Before this week, he wasn't forcing things. He was playing safe, and the team weren't doing anything. And I was critical of him not trying to force the ball in, not trying to take the risks, not worrying about his touchdown to interception ratio more than he should. I think on Sunday it was against the Lions, and albeit the worst defense in football, I don't have a problem with him trying to make those plays in the red zone. One hits a helmet, bops up, and that could have gone anywhere. The other one was a bad throw, and the other interception was a bad throw as well. But he's trying to put the team on his back, and he's trying to force the game. For the Lions, any game against the Green Bay Packers is like the FA Cup final or the Super Bowl. So no wonder they played up. But the Packers are in such malaise and such a downturn of form that it doesn't surprise me that they ended up slipping up on this game. And I'm not totally worried about Aaron Rodgers' play, more so the play calling. I think the play calling has got an awful lot to be desired. Matt LaFleur is not having a good year, and defensively there's some individuals that are propping up Joe Barry's scheming and the fact that they're playing Jared Goff.
Sorry, Ollie, I was going to say, but keep bouncing on, but I'll say this while you're still talking because it's in my head. Since Aaron Rodgers shook Sai's hand, the Packers haven't won a game. There we go. I'm joking.
Oh, here we go.
Ooh,
right, you need to get over to Wisconsin right now, Clansinator. And I will use your surname. So this is all your fault.
That's a very, very fair point, Mike. I hadn't thought about that, but yes.
Can you believe they haven't won a game since? That's insane. That feels like ages ago we were sitting in London. Like
when he dropped back sort of did that little play fake, hid the ball, turned, rolled, and threw that touchdown pass to Mercedes Lewis at Tottenham, I could not have imagined for a single second that they would A, go on to lose that game, and then B, to go on to lose the next 3 off the back of that. I just find it unimaginable, really, given how good he is. But there are significant problems. The offensive line has been an issue. There are clearly some disconnects between quarterback and head coach, in terms of talking about things like the motions and lack of motion and more motion. And, I've seen a number of the well-respected kind of Green Bay media that I certainly follow on social media, Pete Bukowski and Jason Hirschhorn and Aaron Nagler, talking about the fact that, they wanted Rodgers to stand up and say, you know what? It starts with me, and I have to get better as well as everybody else. And I think they felt that it was a little bit uncomfortable, sort of throwing the rookie receivers under the bus. And look, that's certainly it's certainly a tactic that's worked for other quarterbacks, other coaches, other sports in the past, where it's trial by fire. It's this is the NFL. This is not pat a cake football. This is do your job. This is the sort of thing that Bill Belichick has built a legacy on, is, next man up, do your job, that sort of thing. They've certainly not been helped by the injuries. I think that the injuries they suffered the weekend, Rashan Gary, Eric Stokes, Romeo Dobbs going off, it's just, Christian Watson never being able to stay healthy, have been massive issues. And I think what's happened is that it sort of forced Aaron into sort of some hero ball, which we saw at the back end of the Mike McCarthy era. Where you retain outrageous talent and you hope that you can do something with that. And unfortunately, it's just not working. But it's not worked on either side of the ball all season, really. The special teams are still not very good, and I love Rich Bisaccia. The cover units aren't great. I think defensively, I don't understand the scheme that Joe Barry's been playing. Certainly not. You've got Jair Alexander and you're playing zone. You don't let Jair Alexander travel with the number one receiver, and when you do, he plays in. To me, I don't understand it. There's some fundamental issues as well. You look at the linebacking core with Devondre Campbell is not the same player that he was last year. All of those things, I just find like the touchdown throw, or at least the play to David Bakhtiari that got picked off by Aiden Hutchinson. Again, I don't understand that call. I just don't, and is that a bit of Aaron calling that? How did that even get in the install? How was that in the game plan? All those sorts of things. David Bakhtiari has to keep coming in and out of games because because of the issues with his knee, and yet we're out here running routes with him. The injuries to Elton Jenkins, who's played left tackle, right guard, right tackle, left guard already this season. It's been a rotational issue on the offensive line. And actually, I thought they looked pretty good in decent spells. Certainly in the second half against Buffalo, they'd really found something with the run game. AJ Dillon was breaking tackles. Aaron Jones is just such a fundamentally good football player. I just don't know what happens. And I don't know what you do, where you go. I don't know what the moratorium is at the end of the season in terms of, look, what is this team? What does Mark Murphy do? Is it, who? It's such a difficult situation when you've got a first ballot Hall of Famer who you've re-signed to a new contract, who's still clearly got legs in him in terms of his ability to play multiple years. How do you move forwards? Is the situation with Aaron Rodgers retrievable for next season? Is it irretrievable, and therefore you trade him away and you just it's Jordan Love? I can't see a scenario where Matt LaFleur walks in, if they lose this weekend, walks in and says, right, Aaron, you're benched, we're going with Jordan Love for the rest of the season. I mean, that just won't happen. So at some point, the rubber's going to have to meet the road, though, and I don't think that Brian Gutekunst is unimpeachable in this either. I think, and I've mentioned it before on this podcast, certainly, but windows of opportunity in the NFL are small. They are few and far between. And Green Bay has certainly had one over the last 3 or 4 years. But, you come off the back of an NFC championship defeat that you probably should have won, and you draft a quarterback in the first round, rather than, you had the opportunity to you're picking at 23 in the first round. You had CeeDee Lamb still on the board at 17. You had Justin Jefferson still on the board at 21, 22. You had Brandon Ayuk still on the board when you were on the clock. But if you had a conviction about either of those two guys, Lamb or Jefferson, then what would it take to move up with the Cowboys at 17 or whoever it was picking at 16 and give up a 4th rounder to go and just add to that arsenal. I mean, imagine a Justin Jefferson opposite Devontae Adams with that. I don't understand their inability to surround him with as much weaponry as is humanly possible. And then to come back this year, not really do anything in free agency. I mean, Sammy Watkins looks like he's been in a car accident. I mean, he can't run. He literally can't run.
He can't run, and I counted, I think, 3 times against Detroit and countless other times throughout the season where he's run a different route to the one that Aaron Rodgers wants him to run. So why isn't
on 4th down on the game at the weekend? It was just like, what are you doing?
Where are you going, mate? What's going on?
I could push my green my green rubbish bin and still probably cover Sammy Watkins. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I just
well, you are. I've played against Simon Clancy.
Well, that's true.
You are elite.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, buddy.
Elite.
But
it's true.
I just don't. I just don't know where they go, and I just don't know where how they rebuild, because there's clear talent on this team. But even on the deadline, to be so, you're watching teams all over the league make deals. Detroit dealing TJ Hawkinson in division to Minnesota. And I'm not saying TJ Hawkinson is Shannon Sharp, but they could certainly do with a tight end to pair up alongside Bob Tonyan, and they didn't make the move. Same with Chase Claypool. How do you allow, when you're so desperate for help at wide receiver, how do you allow the Chicago Bears to outbid you for Chase Claypool, an in-division rival? A team. I just find it all staggering. So
that Claypool, sorry, Simon, that Claypool thing reminded me of West Ham United pretending to bid for players in the transfer window and saying, oh yeah, we've put a bid in for so-and-so and so-and-so with it's like to appease the media or appease people. Oh, we tried to get a wide receiver in. We were trying to do something in the trade deadline day, but I just didn't quite come off. But we are trying. But that doesn't cut the mustard anymore, does it? Like Claypool had a really, really good rookie year. With Big Ben and an aging Big Ben as his quarterback. Rodgers and Claypool is your different kind of receiver. He can do all of those jet sweeps and stuff out of the backfield. He's big. He's got some good hands. He's a better alternative than Sammy bloody Watkins. I mean, come on. And letting him then go to the Bears, so people that are pointing the finger at Aaron Rodgers, especially last week, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on in the back office. It's a bit of a, for want of a better word, shit show going on at Green Bay at the moment.
Love it. Let's go from one thing in the league to another. This is the big social piece now. The NFL comes to Munich this weekend for the first time ever. The NFL started its first regular season game in London in the late 2000s, 2008, if I'm correct, and finally comes to Munich. I think statistically there's more NFL fans in Germany than there is in the UK. Now, I could be done for saying that by you lads here, but I'm nearly certain, or it's the exact same. But first off, lads, for people that are, just for you that have covered the game, been to games in London, how cool do you think it is to have a game in Bayern Munich Stadium this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I mean, look, I was a kid that grew up listening to the game, or got into the game in the early to mid 80s. The whole conceit that I remember being in Rio at the Olympics in 2016, sitting in the back of a taxi on the way home and watching Monday Night Football live on my phone in HD and thinking, this is mental. Going back and, I used to have to phone a premium rate phone line to get NFL scores on a Monday morning because there wasn't literally no other way of getting hold of it. It wasn't even on teletext. It wasn't. So, my parents would be like, what have you been doing? And I was like, this is when you still had a house phone. Mobiles weren't a thing. I then found the Armed Forces radio. So we'd listen Saturday, Sunday nights while all my friends were out getting pissed and getting laid when they were 14, 15 and at discos and parties and those sorts of things. And I was literally laying on my bed listening to Holy Cross against Florida State and NFL games on a Sunday and just, and that was how I consumed the game. It was the only way to be able to consume the game. And college football, I mean, we had TV highlights. I was telling this to somebody the other day. We had college football highlights on the Saturday night, Sunday morning at 2:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning from the week before. So there'd already been another week of games. So let's say the game was LSU Alabama. they were showing it from the previous week. LSU would have already, and Alabama would already played the following Saturday. And I mean, it was crazy. So to be able to think that we've had how many games that we've had now in London, 30 odd or whatever it's
32.
been, 32, and now this one in Munich, an amazing city in a great country that's mad for the game, really knowledgeable for people. If you've not caught our Gridiron Germany podcast, it's excellent with great hosts, really informative, intelligent, thoughtful people who know the game. And I just think out there they're crazy for the game, and it's brilliant. And I think it's two really intriguing teams. And I think actually when the schedule came out, we probably thought, Tampa will be brilliant and the Seahawks will be a bit rubbish. And actually the Seahawks are the dominant side, and Tampa with that great win over the Rams, it makes it a really intriguing matchup between these two sides with a legit MVP candidate who isn't Tom Brady at quarterback. It's Geno Smith. And yeah, I think the people of Munich will be fired up. That stadium I've been to that stadium. It's absolutely amazing. It will be absolutely rocking. The visuals on the outside, the way that if you've never seen it, the way it lights up with the red and the colors, it's great. It's easy to get to. It's just I think it's going to be a great game and in a great setting.
You're getting me really excited here. Olly Hunter, you're going to be in Munich this weekend. It's going to be great. And the one thing, Ollie, that I wanted to sort of mention here as well is obviously Seattle, for where they're based in the States, they're coming out here. It's not an 8-hour time difference, it's a 9-hour time difference in Munich because of the extra hour. They get out here a day earlier, or at least 12 hours earlier than Tampa Bay. Do you think that makes any difference whatsoever when you're going to Munich for the first time? And are you surprised that both teams maybe haven't engaged to come in earlier because it's the first game in Germany, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, these NFL teams are business as usual. Also, I don't know. I'd love to find out the stats. Maybe this is on me for not doing it, but I don't think there's any correlation to coming out early or coming out on Friday or Thursday or whatever day to how you perform on that Sunday when they've come out to the UK. An extra hour is when you've done 8 hour time difference, but when you've done 10 to 11 hours in a plane, I'm not sure it makes too much of a difference. They'll plan their sleep patterns and their meals accordingly. So I don't think it's got any outcome on the game whatsoever. But maybe not coming out and doing a few extra bits might have been a good thing for the league to do. But in any case, 3 million people tried to get or could have got tickets. Ticketmaster said to this game. The fact that it's going on, the NFL have sent out a whole media team already. They're doing Good Morning Football from there, I think, already. Benetta's out there, so there's the NFL are taking this seriously, and I think so because it's gonna be epic. It's gonna be so good, and we finally and it's two really relevant teams. I think didn't the UK took 32 games for them to have two teams with a winning record. Well, yeah. I know that the Bucks are there or thereabouts, but the Seahawks are looking good this year against almost all odds. And
I think you two boys are in for an absolutely like a weekend of a lifetime in terms of, because if you've never been to Munich it's
never been it.
I've never been because I literally live in the countryside and there's no flights. So
me and my missus went to Munich a few years ago and had an unbelievable time. They do this. There's a place where they do this rhubarb tart, which sounds.
I love rhubarb. Rhubarb's one of my favorite flavors.
This is
right. You've got to tell me where it is.
Unreal. I'll have to find where it is, but the place is amazing. The people are great. It's just such a cool city, and we had an amazing time. And we actually went to Dortmund, Bayern Munich, which was great. It was Klopp's last Munich game. Dortmund won 3-0. We sat in the away end. It was absolutely sensational. But I just think the atmosphere outside, inside, the tailgating, the people, you take like a little overground tram to like a train to get to the station. It was going to be absolutely like when we went to the game, it was just rammed with just joyful football fans. It's going to be exactly the same, full of like shirt, like we see on the tube at London stuff. It's just going to be rammed full of shirts and excitement and bratwursts and steins, and it's going to be like it'll be Oktoberfest with football. It's just that what's not to love about it. You're going to have an amazing time.
Knuckles of pork and Bavarian beer houses and lederhosen.
I want you to turn up, Ollie, in lederhosen.
Yeah, well,
actually arrive.
Is it Fistermühle? PFI Fistermühle, I think. Is what I mean. Is what? Well, no, that's the place where the rhubarb tart is. I think.
Okay, if you say so.
I don't know.
I think the WhatsApp chat's going to be interesting this weekend, lads.
This was about 7 or 8 years ago, so but yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
Here, give us your game picks ahead of this game in Munich. Let's hear some game picks ahead of this game, because I'm probably not going to get the chat to you on screen anyway before the game. I'm genuinely taking Seattle to win this game. If you told me, I know you said it's about 6 months ago. Oh, the Seahawks could be rubbish. Pete Carroll, as it stands, if they win another 4 games, he's coach of the year for what he's done to this team. Geno Smith looks fantastic. Kenneth Walker gives him a different option on the run game, and I can't see how the Bucs are going to put up as many points as the Seahawks on Sunday. And I never thought I'd say that, but I just hope we've got a great game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good game, but I'm with you. I think the Seahawks will win. I think you mentioned, 2 of the most important people in the NFC this season, in Geno Smith and Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker's got a legit shot to be Rookie of the Year. And I think Geno Smith, astonishingly, has a legit shot to be MVP. And I think, Josh Allen with a potential injury, Jalen Hurts obviously playing well. You've got kind of Tua coming up on the rails with his performances when he's been healthy. Obviously, Micah Parsons, Matthew Judon, Pat Mahomes isn't going anywhere, Tyreek Hill. But, Geno Smith might be the leader in the clubhouse for MVP. And that's, who would have sat here at week 1 and said, yep, by week 8, when they go to Munich, will be... or week 9, whatever it is, Geno Smith will be the leader in the clubhouse for most valuable player. That you get laughed out of every room you ever go in. Exactly. So I think it'll be and the job that they've done on defense. You lose Bobby Wagner, you lose KJ Wright. That defensive line last year was horrendous in terms of Wagner and Jordan Brooks had about 200 tackles each, and everybody thought, oh, what amazing players they were. And actually, Wagner didn't have a very good year, and they were making tackles solely because the defensive line couldn't stop anybody. And now the secondary is, they've got those 2 young corners playing brilliantly. Again, you've got another legit candidate for Rookie of the Year in Tariq Woolen. The offensive line, they've completely shored up, and they've done so again through the draft with Charles Cross at left tackle and the brilliant Abe Lucas at right tackle. John Schneider would be executive of the year, and Pete Carroll should be coach of the year, because they've just done a phenomenal job. And I can only see the Seahawks winning this weekend.
For my 2 Euro cents worth, could, and this is just a devil's advocate. Could Brady pulling it out last week, getting the win, could that be the spark that ignites this Tampa Bay offense? Because watching that game back, the amount of drops and hands of stone that all of the receivers had. The Scotty Miller drop in the back of the end zone is inexplicable. Mike Evans has looked absolutely rubbish since he got ejected from that game. Was against the Saints a month ago, 2 months ago. So there's clearly things not right, or there haven't been things right in Tampa Bay, especially on offense. The defense had a downturn, but maybe picked up a bit the last couple of weeks. Could what happened and that comeback win in the last seconds against a very poor Rams team be the spark and the ignition that this offense that has the players, could it be what it needs just to get them going?
I'll tell you the one thing you don't want to be if you're in the NFC is a team that has to play Tampa in the playoffs. That to me is not what you want. And I think, you go back and you look at that game and you just think, you look at their schedule and Seahawks, a game that they'll probably lose, but then they've got Cleveland, the Saints, both games they should probably win. 49ers, you probably say the 49ers would win that. Bengals, same with that. But then they've got 3 games that they should win to out the season. Cardinals, Panthers, and Falcons. So 2 in-division games. That's just not a team you want to hit in a weak NFC. You could see Tampa and Philadelphia playing off in the Cowboys playing off in the NFC Championship game, even with the record at 4-5, and even the fact they struggled past a pretty average Rams team at the weekend. But that K-Dot and catch, that Tom Brady throw, that drive, that's kept their season alive. So it will be very interesting to see what happens, because it's a massive game for Tampa this weekend. Because if they win that, then all bets aren't off in the NFC. But I think there's a lot could happen if they do overturn the Seahawks the weekend.
9-8 could get you into the playoffs.
Absolutely. I mean, 8 and 9 could get you into the playoffs in a bad division. I mean, it really could.
Time will tell. I feel like we'll be sitting here over Christmas laughing at some teams' records. But one thing is for sure, for the vast majority of people this weekend, it could be the last time they see, first and last time they see Tom Brady play football. And to see him, I think he's the first quarterback to play in the US, Mexico, the UK, and now Germany. Nobody else has done it, so a fair play to Tom. The game is on Sunday at 2:30. If you go to the game, tweet us your photos or thoughts using hashtag Gridiron Munich. And this guy here, me, will reply within a few minutes. But do check out the Deutschland content as well if you do speak in Deutsch. And even if you speak English, there's someone on the YouTube channel. Speak in Deutsch. I don't know.
Is it Sprechens? I don't know any German, but at least
I didn't do German in school.
I know Bussenhalter, which is bra.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But
that's it.
Good God.
That's literally the knowledge. That's literally where my German knowledge.
Yeah, I know that you know 2 more words than me.
Viel Spaß. Viel Spaß is enjoy or have fun. So viel Spaß, folks, if you're going to the game on Sunday, and enjoy it. One question, one question. With this from Gary, with the revolving door of head coaches being spun, who is next on the chopping block? I'm gonna. Do you know what? If the Broncos lose in Tennessee on Sunday, in the same sort of manner in which it's happened,
sorry, what were you saying in Wembley?
Lads, I'm telling you now, that lad would have been sacked if they had lost that game. I have no doubt about it in my mind whatsoever. I don't know who's going to be next. It could be your mate Cliff getting the big payoff.
Yeah, I think it'll be Cliff. I mean, that team's an absolute joke. I can't see how Kingsbury stays a coach that much longer. The only other guy to me is Josh McDaniel. I mean, that's a disaster in the Raiders. And if they lose to Jeff Saturday at the weekend, legitimately, I think he could go. On Sunday. I mean, I think he could go.
Saturday on Sunday. That has a good ring to it this weekend.
Yeah.
Ollie,
Saturday, Sunday, and Monday will be the day when he gets fired. If that's the
Saturday plus Sunday equals.
Yeah.
Ollie, who's your pick? Is there anybody else that we haven't spoke of that you think could get the chop this weekend or
this weekend?
Yeah,
Matt LaFleur.
Oh
no. I mean that would be ludicrous. I'm looking at the standings now. Sean McVay, no.
Tell you who won't be getting the sack is Mike McDaniel, baby.
Look, and I tell you what. There was one throw. He made a lot of throws, didn't he, to at the weekend? But he's playing incredible football, best football I'm sure you've ever seen him play, and including college as well, Simon. Given the stakes now at hand, but the roll out to the left, throw sort of across his body with his left, obviously with his left hand, to I think it was Waddle in the end zone, who and it was a tight throw. But he had some juice on that throw as well. It was just super impressive.
Yeah, he actually made a really tight window throw, sort of across the formation, sort of 25, 30 yards down the field to Tyreek Hill, which didn't look amazing when he saw it. I mean, it was a good throw in real time, but when you see the All-22 and you see the window he fired it into, that was a hugely impressive throw. So, he's playing phenomenally well. So, fingers crossed it continues.
We went 47.5 minutes without talking about the Dolphins, but we got there in the end. Lads, this has been really, really good fun. If anyone's listening going to Munich this weekend, enjoy yourselves. Do give us a shout on Twitter and we'll maybe try and meet up and have a Stein or say Prost.
Or a Bussenhalter.
Yeah. That's good, yeah. Please do give us a shout on social media. You can get us on Twitter at Gridiron. On YouTube, just type in the Gridiron NFL show, Gridiron Deutschland as well if you're going to the game this weekend. TikTok and Instagram as well. Michael McQuaid, Simon Clancy, Olly Hunter. Lads, thanks a million. Enjoy week 10. Chat to you soon.
See you later, boys.
Cheers, mate.